Welcome to Sanctuary, a ministry of Sanctuary Community of Christ. We are radically queer, radically affirming, and radically loving, and radically all about Jesus. Welcome, everyone. I am really excited about this episode because I have with me today three amazing mama bears. I have Elizabeth Brown, Maggie Fout, and Amanda Jacks. And I'm going to let each of the mama bears introduce themselves and share their story with you. And then we'll kind of discuss some more hot button topics in this episode. So first up is Elizabeth Brown.
Hello. Hi. Yes, I'm the mother of a trans daughter, and I have a very proud gay son. And our story started about 10 years ago. Actually, a little bit before then, but my daughter told us at 2 that she was a girl. She told us that she had a secret that she was a girl. And of course, I was like, no, you're not. And we kept telling her no. And she was actually 2.5 at the time. And so as time went by, at 3, she wanted to harm herself. And then, and we kept going back and forth. She kept telling us that she was a girl, insisting that she was a girl. And so we started letting her have her princess dresses and all her girl toys that she loved. And about I'm gonna skip ahead to preschool. She started preschool at Northwest, and she wanted to wear it was January. She wanted to wear a princess shirt that we had bought her to school. And I told her, I said, honey, you can't wear that to school because you might get bullied. And she started crying and said that we didn't love her because she was a girl. Well, I started crying and I said, okay. I said, I do love you. And I called the principal and said we were going to send her to school that day wearing her shirt. And I made a whole bunch of phone calls, and my sister had reached out to me and said there was a trans clinic in Cincinnati. So I called them. In January, late January, and they finally got back to me on my birthday to say that they were going to get her in. But she was the very first 5-year-old to ever be at the trans clinic. And so they told me that they made an appointment for us to come in on April 11th. So we took her, and me and my husband both went, and we sat in the doctor's office, and they explained to us that she was transgender. And they turned to my husband and they said, do you love your child? And my husband said, of course. And he said, and then they told my husband that if you do not transition this child, you will be burying them. So we left that office and sat outside with my daughter, and we asked her, I said, do you want to live your life as a girl? And she said, yes, Mommy, very excitedly. And we went from there. That was the beginning of her transition. And it was rough along the way. I mean, before we even went to the trans clinic, we actually first went to her pediatrician in South Shore. And I had went to him because I didn't know where else. We didn't know what to do at the time. And so I had called actually numerous times prior to this to tell them that we were having these issues, but they kept saying it was just a phase. And so when I finally took her into that doctor's office, and I had my daughter, my eldest, Emma, wait outside with my daughter, with her sister, and until I could talk to this doctor. And the first thing was he was about as red as an apple by the time I even sat down, because he knew what it was about. And he immediately went, no. He said, no. You need to man this child up. You need baseball, football, basketball, less mommy time, more daddy time. And I said, well, what about transgender, he said, "Oh, that's something homosexuals invented." And I was getting more alarmed by the second. I was getting very pissed off. And oh, and he said that every time that she said that she was a girl, he wanted me to spank her. And I was like, no. She would have been black and blue if I would have listened to him. Well, finally, he knew it wasn't going well because the way I looked on my face, I was pissed. And I remember standing up. I don't remember like saying the things I did, but apparently I cursed, left out, and walked out. And I sat in that parking lot for a long time and bawled. And I called my dad, and my dad was like, "You want me to come over there?" you know. I was like, "No, Dad, you don't need to." But that day, I definitely think that interaction with him made me realize that I had to go the other way. There was another way. There had to be a better way to help my daughter. And the trans clinic, Dr. Connor, they were the way. And, I don't regret it.
Awesome.
Definitely not.
Awesome. All right, Mags?
All right. Well, my journey, again, kind of like Elizabeth, it started a long time ago, about 13 years ago. My oldest daughter is trans, and she started saying when she was about 4 that she was a girl, and my husband and her biological mother were very much against it and said, "Oh, this is just a phase, whatever." But there were signs, there were red flags all the way until she got older. She didn't actually fully come out as being transgender till she was 12. However, we went through all the kind of stereotypical things that a lot of trans girls, she loved pink and glitter and sparkles and everything girly. She was bullied mercilessly in school for being effeminate. And as my daughter likes to say, joke's on them, because I was a girl the whole time. Which is good that she can joke about it now. But when she finally had came out to us, she'd been going through a lot of really difficult times in her life with her biological mother, as well as just the trying to deal with being trans and not being able to live as a girl. And she was kind of shoving all that down. I think it's really important for people to know the emotional and mental trauma that comes with being trans and trying to hide it to pacify other folks. So once she was able to actually come out to us and to her therapist and her psychologist, we saw a huge change. And again, I just think that's really important for people to understand that these children are going through something that most of us can never, ever imagine. Looking in the mirror and seeing someone that you don't know, that isn't you, that you hate, that you want to self-harm. Like, there's just so many things that people just don't understand the extreme mental anguish that these kids can go through, especially if they're not supported. So I was really, really lucky. A couple years before she came out, I had found Community of Christ, and I had found the Portsmouth Welcoming Community. And so I actually had support. I may not have had support from family exactly or from my husband's family, but we did have our church family, and that meant the world to us. Because of the 2 ladies that I'm here with, in this room with, I was able to find not only Cincinnati Children's Hospital's transgender clinic, but I was also able to find a school where my daughter was fully accepted. And that was a big thing for us, and especially because it happened during 2020. And luckily for my daughter, she came out right when COVID had hit. So she never had to go back to school as a male. She was able to live her life starting from that point as exactly who she was. And again, with the mental health, her depression went away, her anger went away, the violence that she was showing, all that went away because she was able to finally be who she was herself. Sadly, her biological mother has severed all contact since she came out. And still to this day, my daughter's 17 now, she hasn't had any contact with her because she hasn't been able to accept her yet. However, with the community support that we have through the church and through our friends, the Cincinnati Children's Clinic, Trans Clinic, as well as her school, she is thriving. And thank you for this opportunity to tell our stories.
Yes.
No problem. All right, Amanda?
I'm Amanda Jacks. I'm going to start by sharing that I'm married, and I know these other two ladies are married as well, but I'm just kind of sharing the whole picture of our family dynamics, because my older two children are from a previous marriage. My younger two children are with my current husband, Trevor, and so I had experience, as well as, you know, you two, as from being a mom, and I've worked with kids my whole life. And my degree is actually in psychology, and my husband is actually as a science teacher, a biology teacher. So, you know, so when people like assume that like parents are the ones pushing an agenda of some sort, I almost want to laugh I can't stop from laughing because I'm like, you guys don't even have a clue. Like, I mean, if anybody should have like known better, I mean, I was clueless, you know, because when our child, who was born male, and like I said, this is my third child, and when our child was born male, and we had my oldest child's a girl, my second child's a boy, so there was equal exposure of the genders. There was, you know, I was a stay-at-home mom at the time, but Trevor was very involved, you know, playing with the kids and everything. So it wasn't like, you know, like our child was just pushed in any direction, is what I like to point out, you know. And I know that's not the case for either of you as well, but I mean, you know, to be pushed in a direction.
Oh, absolutely.
But I remember so clearly that, you know, very, like at 2.5, I would say things like, because our child was very drawn to my oldest, my daughter, and whatever she had, more than my son, and was very flamboyant with you know, expressions and whatever, and we would always kind of joke and say, well, that's going to be the gay one. And I know that's not, we didn't mean it in a mean way. We were proud of that, but we weren't like afraid of that or, you know, negative about it. It was just like, oh, you know. And what we started to realize was there was a little bit of a difference here. It wasn't so much that our child was just drawn to those things. When playing with baby dolls at about 2.5, 3, and I'd say, you're going to be such a good daddy when you grow up. And she'd look right at me and say, I'm a girl, I'm going to be a mommy. And I was like, oh, honey, no, you know, and I just thought she's confused. Kids that age, you know, like I never really worried about like the whole, like, I mean, my son, he would wear like whatever Anna was playing in. They were only 19 months apart. I never thought anything about it. And it was just him playing dress up. It wasn't that he was trans, you know, so I, you know, didn't think anything about it on this round either. The third time around, you know, I was like, yeah, whatever, you know, kids like what they like. And so I never really made a big thing out of it. Well, what I noticed was that our child was always wanting to wear my oldest child's like dresses, the hand-me-downs, you know, and it was like not just for playtime. I mean, this is what they wanted to wear all the time. So it got to a point where we started, it was almost like a tug of war going places. We would barter and be like, you know, you're allowed to wear your, you know, princess shoes and a headband and a bracelet, but you can't wear the dress. Well, why not? You know, what, like, it's explaining that to a 3-year-old. And here's the thing is the double standard. A little girl goes out with her baseball cap, her jeans, her shirt, you know, a sports shirt. Oh, she's a tomboy. Everybody pats her on the back. Oh, you know, it's so cool to see her so tough. If you take a little boy out in a tutu, people are calling CPS.
Exactly.
Looking at you and telling you what an awful parent you are. How can you do this to your child? You know, do you even love your child? Like they have a clue what's going on anyway. So, so it just kind of grew, and as our child was going to, you know, preschool, and it just got to be more of that tug of war, and then she started self-harming. And when I say self-harming, what I mean by that is pulling her hair because it's too short and she wants it to grow out. Scratching her arms because she had hair on her arms, and girls don't have hair on their arms, mommy. Like, I don't even know where that came from, but it was just extreme, like, you know, thoughts.
Ginger's dysphoria.
Yes. And I had never, in all of my years, all of my experiences, and that's why I started with the fact that I have the degree and things like that. Not because I'm saying I'm above anyone, but I'm just saying that in all of that, I never was like, this child's trans. We're just, you know, yay, you know, like it wasn't like that, you know, like I had no agenda. We were just as clueless, to be honest. We just wanted our child to be happy and healthy. And that was it, you know? And so then I'll never, ever forget, by this time I had my fourth child. And I was reading, I had found a book, My Princess Boy. And it was about a little boy that liked girl things. And that's what I was still holding on to. Like, this is just a child that just likes those types of things. We're not going to label this. We're not going to make it into something, you know? And I was researching and reading and talking with friends who are therapists and things like that and trying to understand it better. And I remember reading this book, and just the face just lit up, and again, read it again. And so we read it a few times, and I remember I closed it and I looked over and I said, do you feel like you might be a girl? And I mean, you could feel the weight lifted off.
Wow.
And she says, yes, I'm a girl.
Aww.
But she says, but I'll keep my boy heart until I'm a grown up for you and daddy.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
That was heartbreaking. And that was it for me. I instantly, it was like I couldn't breathe. It was like I had the wind knocked out of me.
Yeah. That's how
and
I
I
felt.
said, okay. Yeah. And this was the spring, right before the summer, for kindergarten. And so I remember Trevor came home, and I mean, because Trevor and I both, we were just like, we just didn't know what to do. I mean, I tried taking the toys away and replacing them with boy stuff that was like, you know, like replacing the dresses with the capes, and, you know, the princess crown with a king crown. I mean, I really was trying redirection and you know, just to teach, because I was coming from a place of ignorance. And it wasn't that I didn't accept, it's this stupid world and the expectations that this society sets on our families, and it's not fair.
No.
You know, but you know, you don't want that for your kid. You know, and as far as, you know, religious aspects, we were a part of a Methodist church in town, and they really took the middle ground.
Right.
They weren't like, they called our child by the preferred name and used preferred pronouns when we asked for that, which I felt was a huge step in the right direction. And that's why we stayed there for a lot longer. But I also just felt, as this experience has unfolded, I felt that there needed to be more than just acceptance for me, you know, to want to continue in something so personal and intimate as such as religious affiliation or spiritual affiliation. And because that is something that's so ingrained in each of us. And so at that point I separated, you know, from that church, and did start with Liz and Justin and things with the beginning of the welcoming community, and I just, you know, which was really nice. But I still am kind of in a place where I'm happy to support and attend, but I'm not at a point where I'm ready to fully commit to something like that, you know.
I don't blame you.
But she's almost 13 now, and she's thriving, and the self-harming stopped, and the behaviors, it was like a whole different kid. I mean, we had behavior issues before that, and after that, it just never, we didn't have it anymore.
No, I just wanted, when you finished or whatever, like, I think since we are able to reach a wider audience, I just want to really put forth the point. There's so many misconceptions about transgender children and their parents. I wish I had a dollar for every time I was called a child abuser for letting my child transition to be the person she always has been.
Or my child will never be confused about who they are. Well, my child wasn't either. I was the one that was confused.
Yeah.
Exactly.
She knew. I mean,
yeah, our kids, all three of them knew.
They knew. They knew. This was not a question.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
It was always just, there was a statement from them.
We want to say we know our children better than our children know themselves. And it comes back to this idea of like, we own our children, we have these expectations of our children, without stepping back and realize that our children are human beings. They have their own hearts, their own minds, and we can't keep trying to shove them in a box that they don't fit into. It just doesn't work like that. But like I said, there's just so many misconceptions, and there's this idea that parents are pushing their kids to be trans, or it's cool or trendy. And I think there's not enough parents of transgender children's voices out there to really counteract that, because it's not something that's fun or trendy. It's a ton of worrying, a ton of guilt. It's a ton of being scared to death, because statistically, our children will be lucky and blessed to make it to 18 years old and still be alive.
Yeah. I told my daughter, we had a conversation about like her transitioned in the yearly, and I told her, I was like, you were the one that fought for who you are today.
Yep.
You were the one. It's you.
They have to be
It
fighters.
wasn't me. It wasn't your dad. We loved you. You made us see that. You showed us who you were, and if you wouldn't have been so stubborn and persistent, I mean, I'm very thankful that she was, because I just can't imagine having anyone else.
Well, and that's it, because we may not even have them. If
Yeah.
that's it.
That's
I
scary.
believe the statistic is 73%. A child is 73% more likely to make it to 18 if they have at least one supportive adult in their life. And I think folks do not realize the staggering statistics of these children, again, not even making it to 18 or 21 without support.
Right.
Because the gender dysphoria is horrible. It's traumatizing. It's the dealing with people on a daily basis that you come in contact with, you telling you that you're not who you are, and that who you are is sending you to hell, or your parents are forcing you, or whatever it is. This idea that folks are going to detransition later in life, and I believe the statistic is 1%. Right around 1% of folks that detransition.
Well, honestly,
and even then, they're not even a lot of times detransitioning. They're finding that they're non-binary, or because gender's a spectrum.
Right. Honestly, to people that say that stuff, I'm like, if they even make it that far, then we can worry about it then.
Yes.
Yeah.
We got to get them to
my
live.
My job is to get them to that point, at least.
Right.
So how are we going to get there if we're starting now and just assuming, well, what if we can't live off what ifs? Like, life is not, you can't live off what ifs.
There's also Leela Elkhorn,
Yes.
who was
in Cincinnati.
her parents were forcing her basically to do conversion therapy, and she wrote a letter saying fix society, and then walked out in front of a semi-truck.
Yeah.
At 18 years old.
And that's what we want. That's the example that we want to give.
Yeah.
As, listen, life's hard. Parenting is hard. There are ups and downs no matter what. And it's not about me telling anybody else, how to handle those ups and downs. It's about doing what's best for my family, and my child doing what's best for them. I'm going to do by them. And that's not, and it really makes me sad that other parents would rather focus on, an outdated and misunderstood Bible verse, or misconstrued, government leader that says something or whatever, rather than looking at their own child and doing what's best for their child, because, and to heck with everybody else, because, I don't need to answer to everybody else.
Yeah, and we definitely need to talk about how Ohio's
the
attacking,
legislation.
Yeah, they're attacking the trans community.
Yeah.
And our kids are being singled. They're using our children as platforms.
Yep.
Political platforms.
Our
and
children
it's sick.
Yes, it means nothing.
And
the suicides that they're going to come from this, it's just, I don't even want to think about it.
Well, and of all the things that we should be focused on, that's what they're targeting.
Yeah.
Like these kids living their lives and having doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, all the people in the fields that are flat out saying this is what's best for these kids, who have already have expressed that that's what's best for them, and the parents have already said that's what's best for our children. And you still have these outsiders that apparently
Christians
that think they are above and they know more, and they've never lived it, and they have no empathy and no support to any of us. And it's really disgusting, the things that they think and say and the hate that they spew. And then they turn around and go to church on Sunday and act like they're the best of the best because, well, I said a prayer for them, to change. It's not about that. If you miss the memo altogether on Jesus.
They miss that whole loving your neighbor thing. Like, that's
tremendously.
And it's all about spreading. It's about spreading lies and misconceptions and
focus on your own
families. It's control.
It
That's
is.
what it is.
It's control.
It's like, I don't like it, so you can't do it. You can't live like that.
No.
But that's not what that's not even what Christianity is.
No.
I mean, you're missing the whole point.
Well, and I think something else that's very important is, I know right before November, they were having political commercials, and my middle child, because I have other children as well. I've got 2 other children, and my middle child, he come up and he's like, did you watch this commercial? And I'm like, no. And he's like, well, he backed it up. And he's like, you need to watch this. This is really crazy. And the commercial was on public TV, talking to Ohioans, telling Ohioans that parents were taking their children in to clinics to get them chopped up, chop shop, and
not true.
And that's so not true.
No.
These children not only come out and say, hey, this is who I am. These children have a plethora of professionals behind them to even transition, get any kind of medical care as far as transitional care. These kids have to have psychologists check them out, therapists check them out, pediatricians, actual trans pediatricians that specify in trans care.
Yep.
These kids have to jump through tons of hoops just to get medical care anyway. And then now in the state of Ohio, we've taken that away from them and left many kids right in the middle of transition. And parents are being forced to take their children out of state for them to even do something as simple as hormone blockers, which, by the way, hormone blockers are completely reversible. They aren't causing any trouble. They're pausing. They are absolutely pausing.
And by the way, also have been used on kids as young as 2 years old.
Absolutely. It's been used
that have started their menstruation as
precocious
young as 2.
Puberty.
Yes. And had been on it for years.
So we know that this is safe. It's already, it may not have been used for trans care, but it has been used very safely and effectively since the 70s. For children with precocious puberty. And again, it just basically pushes the pause button, and that gives children more time if they are figuring out who they
or if they
are.
Realign. I mean, that does happen. A very small percentage. They do realign their gender and their sex, and that's a big misconception and misunderstanding too. Gender and sex are not the same thing. Sex is your biological makeup and has to do with your anatomy mostly. And then your gender is pretty much how you as a person feel, whether you feel more feminine or masculine or in between. And I understand that I try to always take the approach of that people are scared of what they don't understand. And I've seen that and I've dealt with that. And that's why I really try not to be in people's faces about it too much, because I don't want anyone to shut down because they think I'm trying to force them to agree. I don't care if you agree with me or not. You don't have to agree with me. Science is science, and it pretty much spells it all out. But what I'm saying is, like, I would just appreciate for those people who are ignorant on the subject, rather than just going off of what they were loosely told in 7th grade biology class, that they update and realize that science does change.
Yeah.
Facts do come to light, and you need to accept that. You don't need to accept me. You don't even need to agree with this. I don't care. But, like, you don't have to hate us, especially my child, based on that, on your old misconceptions and your ignorance. Yeah. You know, that's what it really boils down to for me.
You got to know better to do better. And I think that's one of the things that I'm sure that's one of the reasons why the three of us are even doing this podcast, is because folks need to know better before they can do better.
Sure. Yeah, and one thing I do want to push out there is no surgeries done on minors.
Right.
Everyone, that's what the Christian Republicans are saying. They're saying that we're doing surgeries, 0 surgeries until after they're 18.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. 0, absolutely
it's
none.
Not happening. It's not out there happening. And again,
and
that's
the doctors are shocked by that too, that they didn't say that.
So. Yeah. I mean, we have these people are not even consulting the pediatricians whatsoever. They don't even know that these things aren't happening. They just tell the world they're happening.
It's not about, though, understanding for a lot of those people. Again, it's about they have fear and they want control. Yeah. And they're not willing. And that's why a lot of people, I'll just say, listen, if you would like to learn more, I'm happy to sit down with you and answer your questions anytime. Yep. But I'm not going to go toe-to-toe with someone that is already made up their mind that they have no desire to understand the facts. They just want to be right. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, that's their MO.
Like as you ladies were talking, I kept thinking back to when I was a kid, and I was 4, 5, and obsessed with Wonder Woman, as you can see. And on Saturdays, the old Linda Carter TV show would come on, like reruns, and I would, like, they came on at like around 1 o'clock on Saturday and Sundays, and I would sit and watch those. I remember thinking that Lyle Wagner, who played Steve Trevor, was pretty, but I remember, like, I wanted to be Wonder Woman, and I would pretend that I was Wonder Woman, but I don't remember ever not wanting to be a boy.
Right.
I was just obsessed with Wonder Woman. I thought she was the coolest thing ever. I do remember, as I got older, having thoughts about, like, and usually this is around, because I had a crush on a boy, that it would be easier for me to be a girl. That way maybe he and I could be together. Yeah. But even then I thought, but I don't want to be a girl. And as a gay man, I get asked questions like, well, do you do drag? No, I hate drag. Like, I don't hate drag in the sense that I think I love drag. I hate doing drag. Yeah. Like, I don't want to shave stuff. I don't want to tuck anything. I don't want to, it's a lot of work. And I don't want to deal with all the work.
Right.
Right. So, and I'm glad that you mentioned the difference between, Amanda, you mentioned the difference between gender and sex. Like, I'll paint my fingernails, and I like silky scarves, but I don't want to wear a dress. Right. I'm a gay man who happens to lean a little bit more toward the feminine, but I so I think that a lot of this, a lot of what you have been talking about is ignorance,
Mm-hmm.
and it's willful ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
It's not,
That's what makes me mad.
yeah,
Yeah, me
it's
too.
the willfulness.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we live in 2024.
Yep.
Your phone, your computers, your tablets, whatever. Heck, you can even speak it. You can just say, "Hey Siri" or "Alexa," and ask
I'm a fan of
questions.
good listeners and helpful beings.
And there it was. But you can ask questions,
Mm-hmm.
and you can educate yourself.
Right.
And folks, there are still libraries.
Yes,
Okay.
big advocate for that.
Yes, there. If you're not familiar with libraries, they are this thing that's kind of like a museum, and they have these things in them called books.
Yep. And
You can go
even get
in.
'em- you can even listen to the books.
Yeah,
don't
you
have
can
to read
listen to them. You don't even have to
know
read
how to
them. And there's things in there called librarians, and those are people that will guide you to information.
Yes.
It's not like they don't have the ability to educate
Right.
themselves.
Well, and another point to make off of that is that not only is there a difference between the person's gender and sex, there's a difference between gender and sexuality, and that's where a lot of people get hung up too. They think that, oh, kids that age don't know what sexuality is. You're pushing that on them. It's not sexuality. It's not the same thing. So you're right. That isn't in the same wheelhouse. And in fact, gender expression is between 3 and 5 years old. And a lot of people, if you ask them, like, well, when did you realize that you were a girl or a boy or whatever? I mean, we just knew.
We knew.
I mean, you just do. You just
I
know that.
I love that
And
question.
it has nothing to do with what I played with or what I wore or whatever. It was just who I was. Like, I just knew.
Yeah. I ask people sometimes. I always go like if we're talking about trans issues, I'll be like, when did you know you were a boy, or when did you know you were a girl?
Right.
And they always knew, just like
Yeah.
our kids always
Yep.
knew.
Yep.
Mia told me
Just-
she knew when she
yep.
was in my belly.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's just, it was always.
And like in my case, I didn't know what gay was because I didn't hear anybody ever mention gay or homosexual. It wasn't until I was 12, 13, 14, and at that point, I was interested in, well, what does he look like? Like, what does his body look like compared to mine?
Right.
And I just feel like people need to understand these concepts and really get in there. So I do want to ask you, all three of you have mentioned at some point gender dysphoria. So when you went to when your child started this process, did the doctors explain gender dysphoria to you?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
And and my daughter was definitely had been showing it very strongly. But once we transitioned her, it was all gone. And even now, it's been 10 years since she transitioned. This year was her 10th year, and she's going to be 16 next month. It's never changed. She's never wavered. She's happy. I mean, so happy with her hormones, with her blockers. She loves her life, and I'm very happy for her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Elizabeth, you have a gay son.
Yes.
So, and they're twins.
Twins.
So, can you kind of speak a little bit toward that, like the just what that has been like, seeing them become who they are?
Oh, it's amazing.
And they
It's
were identical, right?
identical.
So that's
Twins.
another layer to the
Yeah, and the doctor had actually told us back in 2014 when we took Mia, my daughter, she had told us that it's like 60% chance that the other twin will either be trans or gay or straight, but we never knew. But but my son, he definitely he was showing like the world who he was, but he didn't have to worry about it. He got liberal mom. My daughter got conservative mom. And I'm just gonna throw in there, I was very conservative when we transitioned my daughter, and I struggled. I literally threw Christianity out the window because I was so mad at God. I was like, how could you do this?
Right.
I blamed him.
Sure.
truly I blamed him. I didn't want no part of him. You both know that. I was just very bitter,
Yeah.
very bitter, because I didn't want my daughter to struggle in life and have hate. That she's already had so much hate, and like her, you mean at 7 she had a crap load of hate after the incident at the Northwest schools over the bathroom.
Yeah.
So I mean, she was bullied at a very young age by us and by her peers and grown men and women. So she's had to she's the bravest person. Yeah, she's the bravest person I know.
And that's the thing, it's kids have enough thrown at their way anyway as they're trying to grow up and navigate and figure out life. And it's so sad to me that people want to, again, say, oh, this is on purpose, or this is a fad, or whatever. And it's like, no one wants their life to be hard.
No one.
And that even goes for other kids in the queer community, because no little boy that realizes that he is attracted to other boys and that someday he wants to grow up and marry a boy, nobody picks that. Nobody's like, oh, I want to do exactly what is the opposite that society is telling me I need to do and make my life hard and be tortured by complete strangers besides folks that I actually know. No one wants that.
Well, and there are lots of people out there that did force themselves to grow up as cisgender, heterosexuals. And that, in my opinion, has ruined more families.
Oh yeah.
Than not, because, eventually they do realize they can't continue to live the lie.
Exactly.
And they either unfortunately die by suicide, or they take it out on their families. They become alcoholics or drug users.
A lot of folks turn to substance abuse.
And so when we're thinking about like on a scale, like all the things that can come from that, I mean, I don't know. I don't understand why people get so hung up on other people's lives. Like, just live and let live.
Our kids are very lucky. I'm not saying we're like the best parents in the whole world, but we came around. Right. All of us.
Not everybody's folks do.
Right, exactly. I've always been very liberal in my mindset, but I was raised in a conservative household. And I don't know, I just kind of, but I was lucky enough to have family that even though they voted conservative and whatever, they still respected and loved me enough to just let me be who I was and find my own way, which I think is incredible, really.
Yeah, but
because that's unusual.
It is, and my family are conservative and supportive too, but my problem is they want to. It's just painful to watch them vote for Trump. Yeah, again and again, even though he has made it very clear what he has in store for our kids.
Oh yeah, I've already been trying to push my husband in the direction of like what's our backup plan, because I'm not going to wait and watch A Handmaid's Tale unfold in front of my eyes and have us stuck here and my kid forced to live that way, because that's the first thing on his agenda is to eradicate all transgender rights. Every transgender. There will not be anything like that.
And then he'll come after the rest of the queer community.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
There is no doubt in my mind that he's going after
marriage equality. Just disgusting. I mean,
equality.
I can't even imagine. Like, as much as I dislike the extremist, Christians and whatever else, I still would never wish them, and their children, especially, to be eradicated. Right. I mean, I would love to, if we could force them into mental health services. That's the direction I would go. They're required to have mental health services.
That's the point of, Sanctuary and this podcast is to bring awareness to the difference. Because, like Elizabeth, you said that you were very angry toward God, that you were very bitter, and you are.
Absolutely. Still.
And what happens is so many people in the queer community feel exactly the same way you do.
Right.
They have no they're either afraid because they have been traumatized by conservative Christians and conservative Christian organizations, and by the toxic theology, all based on misinterpreted scripture. And they don't, a lot of them are also angry, bitter, and they don't know that there are believers out there who do not feel that way.
Right.
But it's natural to blame God, because you have a group of people who say that they follow and worship this God, and then they turn around and do hypocritical things. And yes, folks, I'm using my sassy ass mouth. They do hypocritical things. They say, "Oh, I love you,"
Right.
but there is no but in love.
Or love the sinner, not the sin.
And I've actually had, I remember this day. I was at the dollar store with my daughter, my oldest, and the twins were there. And I had a woman walk up to me who used to be part of a church I was used to go to at Otway. And she actually told me that she knew someone who could change my child. And I remember I cursed. I said some cuss words at her and walked away. I actually stormed off. But, like, people would always be like, well, maybe you should, like, try to fix. They were trying to push conversion therapy on us. And that's what I think the Republican Party wants to do. And
it is what they want to do.
That's their, I'm sure it's just, it's sickening.
So that brings me to, I want to talk about this bill that just passed here in Ohio, which is, I believe, 183, if I remember correctly on my information here. Basically, this bill says that, it says I'm reading from an article, 2 anti-transgender bills have recently been moving through the Ohio legislature. House Bill 8 would force educators to out a student's sexuality to their parents, require public schools to inform parents about sexuality or sexuality content materials ahead of time, and give them the option to request alternative instructions. The bill passed in the House over the summer and has had a few hearings in the Senate Education Committee. And then we have House Bill 183 would ban transgender students from using the bathroom and locker room that matches up with their gender identity. The bill was recently voted out of committee, but hasn't made its way to the House floor. But as of it has passed. And from what I understand, the Republican Party snuck it in to their
after midnight,
and it got passed.
They're
so
snakes.
Basically,
and why would they have to do that, by the way?
Because they're snakes.
Exactly. But I'm saying, if it was really something,
if it was legitimate,
like if so many people felt that way, that you wouldn't have to sneak it in anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, if like you said, if it's legitimate, you wouldn't have to sneak it. So that's what gets me, is like, they're not doing things on the up and up.
No, and
we're very open and honest. I'm so transparent. You can see right through me.
I just wish that we could. Or how would they feel if we turned somehow? The Democrats started attacking them and their families.
Exactly.
How would they feel about that?
See, and a lot of the bill and a lot of that type of political stuff, and I've tried to explain this to people, is like, it's not about the Dems coming after you. It's about us trying to defend ourselves.
Exactly, and we will.
That's what it comes down to. If you look at a lot of the things that have been entered, a lot of the bills that have been, processed or whatever, I mean, it's all about, like, that you've got this conservative group of people that don't like something. They want to stop the Dems from doing it. So then we have to come back and defend ourselves. Yeah. That's what that is. And that's where the divide is at, people. I'm sorry.
And you don't see Democrats
we don't try to go against them.
Yeah.
until we've been attacked.
Exactly.
And then it's like, okay, now we got to come back at something. And I mean, so if they really wanted to stop all that chaos and pandemonium, they would actually get themselves in order and in check and quit being such extremists
Yes.
and trying to come after our rights.
That's why.
And
that's why
and
we're
you
kind of
know,
enraged.
the thing that I have trouble grappling with is, especially with the trans bathroom issues, these folks have an idea in their mind that our transgender daughters are going into their cisgender daughters' locker room to ogle their naked bodies or to expose themselves. I'm here to tell you that transgender children that deal with gender dysphoria are not going to show their body
Exactly.
to anyone.
No.
They don't even want to see their
Yes.
own body. These are
Yes.
children who take showers with the lights dimmed and mirrors hidden, because seeing their own body triggers them and
Yeah.
causes them to have this gender dysphoria. They're not out there showing themselves. And
No.
and besides that fact, these folks again have this idea. It's always trans girls doing something or trans women doing something. But I'm telling you, if they go to Walmart and they see a transgender male who is far enough into his transition that he walks out there,
That's
big
right.
burly man with the full beard and
the
he
muscles
and the
and-
muscles, and he walks
Yep.
out of the women's bathroom, you're going to be ticked off.
Right.
These people, not me,
Well-
but these people are going to be ticked off because they're
Yes.
but that is the bathroom that aligns with their
Their sex.
gender at birth, or their sex at birth.
Yeah.
So sorry, I get really upset,
No,
but
that's okay. I
but
get it.
it's ridiculous. And
Right.
and then they're not even thinking about children's safety whatsoever, because you're telling me that you want a transgender girl who, if you're talking about a high school, you're talking about somebody that may possibly have even started hormones. And if they have, you're talking about a girl coming in with her own breast,
Yep.
and you're going to want those those teenage cisgendered boys to stare at her body?
Right.
Like that's okay?
That's normal. That's
Like that
gonna be
is
normal.
not okay.
Oh my gosh. Well, and
And
besides-
they're going to be beat up. They're going to be bullied.
Yep.
There's
It's going to
the-
make that all
Murder,
of
yeah.
that much
murdered.
more-
They are
yes.
going to be murdered,
Right.
and that's
or
not
more
okay.
Suicides.
Yes.
And here's the thing too, is I'm sorry, I didn't realize that public restrooms, because it has that little symbol that says male or female, that was like a magic barrier that kept the weird people out. So like, who's to
Exactly.
stop? Like, you think that, like, I'm sorry, but like, you know why they thought of this? Because they're the sickos that would do something like that.
100%.
That's where that came from. You got some cisgender, like heterosexual like,
Middle-aged man usually.
that probably is suppressing a little bit of gay in him, and has decided all of a sudden that, like, well, that's what I would do. Like, so now it's a problem. What? Like, I'm sorry, you have been using restrooms with trans people for years and not having a clue about it.
Yeah, well, you know,
So
it's. There are horrible people out there, like
Yep.
those two dads that walked into Northwest School and told the superintendent that if their child used the bathroom next to my daughter, who was 7 at the time, that they would cut off her private and stuff it down her throat. I mean, that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
we're
They don't
talking
care what
the kind
age
of
these
people-
trans-
about
our kids are.
grown
Yeah.
adults saying things like, oh, we're going to take this kid, strip him naked, and chain him to the back of a pickup truck and drag him down the road
right.
because they're an abomination of God and they're going to hurt their children. And that is so not true. I mean, that's
Yeah.
horrible.
Well, and for those people out there that would say, oh, I would never think or say something like that. No, you need to make your voice known that you don't feel that way, because that's part of the problem too.
Being silent
There's a
is
lot
being
of-
complacent.
Absolutely. A lot of people out there, they even if they're
Family
not,
included.
yes, even
families
if
are
they're
included
not
in that.
like major, like I said before, even if they are coming from a place of ignorance and they don't really know a lot or whatever, still saying, like, or challenging their own beliefs, their own implicit bias is a way to
Well, that's it.
stand up for our kids.
100%.
Yeah,
And
but
and the statistics
they
don't
don't.
lie. It is not transgender folks Not saying that there's not the one-off transgender folk out there that is doing something, molesting someone's child or something like that. But statistics do not lie. The folks that are out there that we should be afraid of are people that seem safe. I'm talking church leaders. I'm talking Boy Scout,
Uncles,
Girl Scouts, your
cousins.
family members, coaches, teachers. Those are it's the folks that you aren't afraid of
Right.
that tend to be the ones that do something.
Yes.
It's most people that have been molested in their life. This is
Yep.
disgusting, but it's so true. It is usually people
Somebody very
that they
close.
know, someone that has groomed them. We are not trying to groom other people's children by
Or
our
our
children
own.
existing.
Right.
Right.
There's the reject your gay child, but hide and protect the family molester.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In this area,
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
It's
but
sad, but it's true.
Well,
It's
I've
full of
always been
horrible stories.
saying I've been saying since 2018 and probably before that when I was growing up, gay men were the monsters.
Mhm.
That when you turned some TV preacher on, Pat Robertson, Jerry Falwell,
Yep.
and they talked about the gay agenda, they were talking about gay men.
Right.
They were not talking about lesbians.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay, they were targeting gay men. The Heritage Foundation, which is the foundation that has
Oh.
created this Project 2025
2025
thing, was
Yeah.
active in the 70s, and they influenced Ronald Reagan's policies when he was president. Well, Ronald Reagan and his administration has went down in history as the administration that ignored the AIDS epidemic,
And they did.
and thousands upon thousands of gay men died because they would not do anything about it, because in their minds,
Right.
being gay is a choice, and gay men are pedophiles.
Well, and let's face it. In their mind, this was genocide without them having to be the ones behind it.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
felt
I mean-
like folks deserved to die.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did.
It was,
And now-
it was justified
And
in their
churches
sick
did.
minds.
And now today, the transgender community are the monsters.
Yep.
Especially trans women and trans
Yes.
girls.
And I've read Project 2025 or pieces of it,
I have to.
and they do primarily talk about the transgender community. But, let's just be honest, they're not going to stop at that.
No.
They
No, that's
are
the
going to,
beginning.
yes, the beginning, but they're going to continue coming after the queer community. They have even singled out in that document single mothers as being
I know. I saw that. That was
an enemy
horrific.
of their agenda.
Well, yeah, and they don't want to have any type of birth control. So that
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense to
So-
me. I mean,
This is why I wanted you ladies, you mama bears, to come on the podcast today, because you all three said it in your own way, that you have people coming after you. You have people targeting you and your kids. Any mother, if you come after their kids, any good mother, let's clarify, you're gonna stand up and you're gonna
Yeah.
protect your kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep, we're in the damn trenches.
They'll have to go through us.
Yeah.
to our
Right.
Kids.
absolutely.
And that's
And
what
their dads.
and their dads.
Yep.
That's what mama bears and papa bears do.
Mhm.
You
That's
take
right.
care of your kids.
And we are
Right.
very lucky to have wonderful husbands that are supportive.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely.
Kids, too.
Oh,
My
gosh.
mom, when I came out, and I was 21 when I came out. I was forced to come out in a way, but I'll never forget my sister, my older sister, had a really hard time, and she was going to an apostolic Pentecostal church. She sent the pastor and two deacons to our house to exorcise the homosexual demon out of me.
Oh my gosh.
And my mom, I'll never forget my mom running these men off.
Good for her.
And excuse the French, everybody, but my mom said, You think my son has a demon in him? Well, I've got the bitch demon in me, so come at me. And
Yes.
she chased him off the property, away from our house, and that's what a mom does.
That's right. Or should do.
Or should do.
Should.
So, I love that you ladies had the conversation that you had, because I didn't even have to ask questions. You guys took care of that for me.
Well, we're
So,
all talkers.
Yeah,
So start
and
with
that's
that.
good.
Yeah, and there's more of us. There's
Yeah.
more moms in
Oh,
this
yeah.
area who would definitely
Yeah.
want to come on here. You could hear their stories too.
Yeah.
I think that there's there's so many of us.
So and
Well,
that's
there's
what
so
I
much
want.
depth to this conversation.
Yes.
That's what I want
this
this to
is
be.
a piece of the puzzle.
And
Well, that's it.
Maggie, I want you to say something about, just very quickly, about the worth of all persons, because as you ladies were talking, I thought of this verse from John 13:35, where Jesus is talking, and he tells his disciples, "By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." And I see so many Christians, quote, Christians, saying that they are followers of Christ, but yet everything out of their mouth is hate and fear and bigotry, and that is not of Jesus. So, Community of Christ, one of our enduring principles is the worth of all persons. And Maggie, as a priesthood member, could you maybe speak a little bit toward that before we close?
Yeah. So Community of Christ, first of all, is pretty darn amazing when it comes to LGBT inclusion. We have priesthood members who are all parts of the queer community, really, from being transgender or being bisexual, being gay, you name it. So I'm very proud of that fact. And within Community of Christ, we do believe in the worth of all persons. We believe that everyone has that spark of creation from God, that not one person is ever less worthy than someone else. And besides that, we also have unity and diversity. And when Jesus spoke, he said we needed to love each other, and that was the highest commandment of all. It is such a simple commandment, and sadly, folks get caught up in the otherness of each other. And with Community of Christ, that's one thing that I am so incredibly blessed and proud to be a member of this denomination, because we do go out of the way not only to say, okay, well, we accept you and that's okay that you're how you are, but we pull up a seat to the table and make that table wider and larger. And that's what we're really called to do. And being able to have a supportive, not only local church family, but also a world church family is really incredible. Through Community of Christ, we also have Harmony, which is an incredible organization that really helps with education and support for all our members, as well as our queer community members. And I really do think it's important to let it be known that there are followers of Christ that still actually follow Christ, that still, do what he says. In the Bible, it's, they talk about, for example, baptism, and they say that, after that, you're no longer a man or a woman or a Gentile or anything like that. And that's so important, because at the heart of it, we're really just hearts, souls, and minds walking around in meat suits. And if we could realize and see the humanity and see the Jesus in everybody that we meet, our lives are going to be changed and opened exponentially. And just remembering that Jesus isn't lording above us. Jesus came down and met us where we're at and sat with everyone, flew in the face of society of what was the norm. And I think today that's what we're still doing. We're still trying to prove what Jesus said, that everybody is worthy and that everybody is loved, and that we don't have to fit in some kind of itty bitty box that other people have devised for us to be worthy and to be loved and to be worthy of love. so many folks in the queer community have been hurt and banished and kicked out and you name it. But those people aren't God. Those are folks claiming to represent God. But God is love. God is bigger than that.
My name, Amanda, is worthy of love. That's the meaning
Really?
of my name. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
That is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. So,
So,
ladies,
so
Mama
saying
Bears, thank you so much. Will
Thank
you
you,
ladies
Benny,
be
for
willing to
Thank
come
you.
back? Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Awesome.
definitely. Thank you for having us.
And let you all know, I have already asked our Mama Bears if their Papa Bears would be willing to come on. So in about a month or so, I'm going to have the Papa Bears join me, and they'll be sharing their story. And everyone who is listening, always remember that this is your sanctuary, and you are beloved. Thank you for listening.